Maybe this time I'll be lucky. Maybe this time he'll stay. Maybe this time, for the first time, love won't hurry away. He will hold me fast. I'll be home at last. Not a loser anymore, like the last time and the time before. Everybody loves a winner, so nobody loved me.
I call singing my first language. Our currency is being open and available to our emotions. If you're closed off as a person, how are you going to be a performer to get out there and you know, show love or show agony or show despair? Listen. Make sure I'm listening to the person I'm up there on stage with. Because if you're truly listening, then that'll force you to be in the moment.
Yes, the strong gets more, while the weak ones fade. Empty pockets don't ever make the grave. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own, has got his own.
Evolution is very important to me as an artist. Usually if I'm scared of it, I know I have to do it. I will be a better actress, a better artist. It doesn't necessarily mean that I will succeed, but will I have grown as a result?
From this minute I'm telling you, I can't change my heart. Oh my goodness, now.
Good afternoon. I'm Philip Khoury, and it is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to the 2018 Eugene McDermott Award in the Arts celebration of the extraordinary Audra McDonald. And if any of you were at Symphony Hall last night and had the privilege of seeing and listening to Audra McDonald, you'll know just how extraordinary she is. First, I want to recognize Mary McDermott Cook, who is with us this evening. Mary McDermott Cook is the president of the Eugene McDermott Foundation. She has been an inspiration to all of us at MIT for her great support and in support of her remarkable mother, Margaret McDermott. Margaret McDermott is the individual who created this award 44 years ago. And it has been a thriving award throughout. And Margaret couldn't be with us, but Mary is always with us, here representing her mother, and also here with members of friends and members of the McDermott family. So we're just delighted, Mary, for your tremendous support. And we wish Margaret were here with us, and I know you'll wish her, all of us, the best for her. Now, as Associate Provost with responsibility for the arts at MIT, I'm reminded every day of the importance the arts are to the pursuit of excellence at this great institution of ours. Our unparalleled public art collection is one example, but also the concerts, the plays, the exhibitions, the installations put on by our performing and visual artists on our faculty and among our students, not just for this campus, but for the world. Our students, who mainly come here to study science and engineering, also partake and participate in the arts fully. Nearly half of all undergraduates at MIT, for example, choose to take a class in the performing arts each academic year. That is one reason it has felt so appropriate to have had Audra McDonald in our midst, and especially for our vocal students, to have had the opportunity to perform and be coached by her. And she paid tribute to them last night in remarkable ways for which we'll never forget. Now, Audra McDonald is one of the most accomplished actor-singers of the American musical theater. Of course, MIT is not the only one who has noticed her over the years. We're not the last, but we aren't the first. You could call Audra a serial award winner. 6 Tonys, 2 Grammys, an Emmy, a National Medal for the Arts from President Obama, and much more. I should make clear that she has earned the McDermott Award not for a single work or for lifetime achievement, but for certain qualities that reflect MIT's values and ideals. First, her commitment to risk-taking, for embracing and mastering the most challenging roles, especially, as she said, those roles that scare her. As one critic wrote, she immerses herself in roles with such unrelenting fortitude that it simply knocks you out. A second quality is Audra McDonald's versatility, which reveals equally well in performing musical theater, in the Great American Songbook, in Shakespeare, and most recently in network television. And a third quality is her ability to connect creative minds across disciplines, something that we are totally committed to at MIT. As she commented upon accepting our invitation to receive the McDermott Award, my greatest hope is that art helps us as a society to find common ground, to create dialogue, and to understand each other in new and meaningful ways. Now, we're thrilled that Audra McDonald's colleague and friend, Oskar Eustis, has joined her today to speak with us. He has been artistic director of the Public Theater of New York since 2005 and is a professor of dramatic arts, writing, and public policy at New York University. The Public Theater arguably has done more to nurture America's best writers and directors and actors than any other institution, as well as to democratize theater by expanding the roles, participants, and art forms associated with it. These days, the transformation can be summed up by mentioning one show, one word, Hamilton, which premiered there at the Public Theater in early 2015. But the innovation and expansion of the performing arts that have characterized Oskar Eustis' leadership of the Public Theater have been in progress for years now, and no doubt will continue to transform theater in the United States and beyond. Audra McDonald appeared in the Public Theater's 2004 production of Henry IV, and in Twelfth Night in 2009. And I'm certain Audra and Oskar have much more than these productions in common when it comes to their vision for theater and for the contributions the arts make to society. I know they do. Together, Audra McDonald and Oskar Eustis will discuss some of the highlights of her career, how theatrical revivals reflect the times and the evolution of social attitudes and cultural experiences, and how theater has evolved to become more inclusive and more representative of contemporary diversity. Please join me in welcoming Audra McDonald and Oskar Eustis.
Thank you very much. Really, really pleasure. Pleasure. You were spectacular.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for it.
Audra, I think we should get the formalities out of the way.
Okay.
We're talking today to the greatest singing actress in the history of the American theater.
Nope.
And sorry, but it's true. And the thing that we're going to be exploring today is we're going to try to figure out a little about how she does it so we can imitate it. No. Just so we can appreciate it a little more. And I'd love to start. This is a research institution. And I'd love to start with Lady Day.
Okay.
Because your performance in Lady Day was, I thought, absolutely miraculous. Not only the tremendous spiritual and emotional depth you brought, but also the transformation of your voice. And it was uncanny, deeply disturbing, and, and profound. How do you understand that about Billie Holiday?
Well, you know, I was always a terrible student. I was never good at doing my homework on time and doing it thoroughly. But I was always a good student when it came to researching roles and my work in the theater. And with Billie Holiday, I researched her into oblivion. I mean, I not only read every book I could about her, I dug up every audio interview I could find of her speaking. I mean, there was interviews she did with Mike Wallace. There were certain other, radio programs in Amsterdam and in Sweden as well as in the States. There's a lot of audio recordings from rehearsals she had with her band when she was just at one of Jimmy Roll's apartment.
Where do you find those recordings?
All over the place on the internet. The dark web. No, not the dark web. No. But a lot of places in a lot of books that I read would make mention
would give
of
links.
Where to find them. And those, it was very interesting with those particular recordings, especially the ones where she was rehearsing with her band, is you'd hear the interviews of her with Mike Wallace and then her very off guard with her band and hear the difference not only in lucidity, I mean, depending on how drunk she was or, wherever her mental state was. But she was also an incredible raconteur. She was very funny when she would tell stories. She was very good at imitating people as well. So I did all of that oral research. Of course, all of her recordings, her vocal recordings, her singing. And then I interviewed everybody I could find that was still alive that knew her, that spent time with her. I talked to Dr. Maya Angelou, who had spent some time with her. I spoke to some of her old pianists. I spent time with her godson.
And you just asked them anecdotes, stories.
Everything. And as the show was running, more and more people would come to see the show that had spent time with her. So people would come backstage and bring me little bits and pieces of her through stories they had. One woman whose father ran a dive nightclub somewhere, and she was charged with going to pick up Billie Holiday and bring her to the club to do the show. And you know, she told me the story of how we had to stop and get a big old bottle of, I think it was gin, and she drank half of it by the time they got to the club, and it was only like a 20-minute drive. You know, so people would bring me bits and pieces of her. And then finding her actual voice, I realized the more I listened to the audio recordings of her speaking, the more I realized that she sounded and had a cadence quite a bit like my grandmother, my paternal grandmother. And as a child, I used to, and I did it even as an adult until she passed away. My mom's here, my mom will remember this. I used to imitate my grandmother and all of her daughters, my aunts, to their faces, because I just thought it was funny to imitate them. And sometimes they thought it was funny, and sometimes they would, you know, tell me to be quiet. But I used to imitate Nana all the time. And I realized one day in listening to Billie Holiday, it's like, she speaks like Nana.
Wow.
Oh my goodness, Billie Holiday sounds like Nana. So I started imitating Nana, and that's how I found Billie. That's how I found the vocal quality for Billie. So in some ways, I thank my grandmother, because she was my conduit to get to, you know, get through to Billie.
But I have to ask, in addition to your grandmother and the research, so much about Billie Holiday was affected by her drug dependency and substance abuse. And and when I watched you on stage, it felt like I was watching somebody who understood that really much more deeply than your career could have allowed you to understand that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, I did the research. Not. Hold on.
Newsflash.
I have never done heroin.
We've got the headline tomorrow.
No. I did not actually do heroin. However, I did the research. We talked to heroin addict survivors. We talked to, I say we, I mean Lonnie Price, my director, who sort of brought the project to me and, you know, held my hand the whole way through. We looked at lots of footage of people not only under the influence, but people who had been through it and lived to tell the story. We talked to some methadone addicts. And so we did all of that research. I also drank really heavily one night and tried to do as much of the play as I could, just not on stage, but just at home.
Yeah.
I didn't get very far, but I got the feeling of what that was like to work through and try and function through that fog.
Yeah.
And I talked to doctors too, just to get an idea of what the body is going through, what happens to the body. And also, it's a very specific time when the play takes place, 4 months before Billie Holiday passed away. So she was dealing with very specific medical issues. She was quite swollen. She was not eating really at all. Her legs and her ankles were completely swollen. Her stomach was very distended, all of that. So I had all of that as reference to sort of, you know. So it's like putting on, you know, big, heavy sandbags and then trying to walk through life, function, you know, and walk through life. So that helped me with the physicality.
And all of that, I feel like, makes sense in terms of what I saw in your performance. What I also saw was an emotional rawness that was breathtaking. It made me feel self-conscious almost to be watching somebody that. How do you do that? 8 times a week. Did you do it 8 times a week or 7?
I did it 8 times a week in London. I only did it 7 times a week on Broadway. I did it 8 times a week in London, and I had a 7-8-month-old baby with me. So that helped the whole fatigue
Sandbag,
aspect
sandbag.
of it. That was quite real.
But of course, that's characteristic, the emotional openness I'm talking about is characteristic of your work.
Yeah.
And it's a thing.
Yeah, I think, it's interesting when a lot of times, reporters will ask me, or someone who's interviewing will ask me, what did you learn about Billie Holiday that you didn't know that surprised you the most? And I think what surprised me the most, and this is going to sound odd, and I'm realizing it as I'm saying it. What surprised me the most, but maybe unlocked the key to everything else making sense about Billie Holiday, was how much she wanted children and how much she wanted to be a mother. More than anything in the world, she wanted that. She wanted family. She didn't really have it. And she wanted it more than anything. She tried to adopt twice and was obviously turned down, was devastated by that. And so a lot of the sort of loneliness and sadness that she felt, and especially because I am a mother, I do have that joy and that blessing in my life. I was able to tap into what life, what that would be like, if this woman wanted that so desperately and didn't have it, And for some reason, that just kind of was the key into the bottom of her sadness for me,
She shrugs as if that's, so, what you've described is a level of research into her medical condition, into the people who knew her, into the spiritual heart of her, and into your grandmother's voice, all of which, and part of what strikes me is what an enormous amount of work that is not happening just in the rehearsal hall, that's happening as you're creating the part.
Yeah, I mean, that's the life of an actor, I did an interview with one of the MIT students, a great girl who I've spent a bit of time with in my residency here, named Talia. She has a little video series called Tea with Teachers. And so we were just recording that, and we had some tea, and she had little Reese's peanut butter cups out there for me too, which made me very happy. But I was telling her that, being an artist, especially when you're being an actor, and you have to, the research is just as intense as if you were researching, about nanomolecular archaeological hoo-ha.
Yeah. I've looked into that too.
But you have to be that thorough with your research. I mean, if you're going to go out there and be this person, you have to, know everything that you possibly can about them.
We are not going to focus solely on your drug-addicted characters. However, you rather famously, your Bess, both the addiction felt realer than any Bess that I had ever read about or seen before. But you were also struggling not with a real person, but with a fictional character with a very, problematized history of who she was. Can you talk, because you're reviving what is at one and the same moment a classic and yet a very problematic perspective on African-American life. And I wonder if you could talk about what that was like to...
Well, in portraying Bess, the Porgy and Bess was a musical or opera, depending on how you want to refer to it, and I know there's a debate about that all the time, about what it is, that I had loved deeply and was quite obsessed with, and knew from top to bottom. I could sing every single part in my dorm room at Juilliard, and a lot of times I would, and I just sort of put on the record. Yes, it was a record at that point, and sing through the whole thing. And so when I was offered the part, I knew I wanted to not only, research the opera and everything as much as I possibly could, but I wanted to really make sure I understood the genesis for who this woman was. Right. And so I went back to the book. I went back to the source material, which is the book by DuBose Hayward. And I really studied this character. And there were certain things in the book that obviously that didn't make it into the libretto, which were interesting to me. The fact that she had a huge scar on her face. And that's one of the first ways that DuBose Hayward describes her. She's this, statuesque woman, buxom woman, little bit past her prime, humongous scar on her face, which told a story. I mean, I think he even refers to it in that way, that there's a story there, you know. And so I was trying to just get right down to the bones.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I did the research about, you know, what it was like to be an African-American woman at that time and what your choices were. Your choices, they were very limited. You know, your choices were you had to be, you know, have some source of income. So either you were working or you had a husband that was supporting you. I mean, Mom, am I right in those days? I mean, not that you were there in those days, I'm just saying. No, you're too young for that. But, you know, for African-American women during this time, you know, there just weren't many options. So if you didn't have either one of those things, a lot of them had to turn toward, you know, either prostitution or men that would support them in whatever way or whatever contract that they could come up with. And I, you know, once again, I studied the life. I went to Catfish Row in South Carolina. I went to the cabin where Gershwin wrote most of Porgy and Bess. And then obviously there was the political ramifications, you know, of, you know, we were doing it here in Cambridge, and the New York Times did the story, and then Mr. Sondheim wrote a letter, and, you know, about, you know.
Not his sunniest side.
Well, I mean, it just in terms of, I mean, and it's because everybody's very passionate about Porgy and Bess, but there, and I think Gershwin absolutely approached this with love and with as much as he could give to it and as much as he could possibly understand, but he was still writing about a culture that he may have studied as much as he possibly could, but he couldn't, there was a part of it that wasn't his, that he was not ever going to get into. And so, for us, it was very important to make sure that we infused it in a way that had, I don't want to choose the wrong word, but the understanding and the nobility and pride of that people that perhaps there was no possible way that Gershwin could have put into those characters because that's not a culture he came from, even though I think he wrote them with love.
So can you talk in just famously here in Cambridge, Bess rejects the drugs at the end, yes? And then by the time you came to New York, you changed that decision. Yes. And I mean, can you just talk a little bit about that? Sorry if I...
No. I mean, you know, I think with Diane Paulus, who was over and brilliant director and in charge of the ART, Diane was trying to, you know, we had been given this sort of charge from the estate to, you know, all right, dust it off, see what you can find there. And so I think we were throwing everything at the wall and seeing what worked. And so Diane wanted to try it this way. And directors who have worked with me have, I think, lovingly and honestly said that I'm not, maybe I am. Okay, I guess I'm difficult to work with. I'm going to say it. I will try something.
I've heard intense. I've heard demanding. I haven't heard difficult.
I will try anything once, and I will try. And if it doesn't, if you cannot convince me of an organic and truthful why, it's never going to work on me. I won't be able to execute it. I won't be able to do it. And as many times as I tried to do it, rejecting the drugs in the end, it wouldn't work. She'd watch the show and come back and go like, okay, can you try, you know? And it wasn't that I wouldn't do it. It's just that I couldn't find the why anywhere within my bones. And I guess that makes me a bit difficult to work with.
No,
but and so in the end, Diane and I decided, okay, let's try it this way. And then we tried it that way. It's like, okay, there she is, there you are, and now, Audrey, you're giving me, it's making sense and it's ringing true organically for you in your performance.
And it also, I mean, frankly, in New York, it was heartbreaking. It was devastating, and that very question that you had of ennobling the character weirdly enough, she was more ennobled falling than she was resisting. Because you could feel the size of the spirit that was going under. It was just, I thought, extraordinary.
It's interesting, too, to have played those characters back to back, to play Bess, and then to have played Billie Holiday. James Baldwin wrote about Billie Holiday's death, or right around the time of her death, you know,
seeing her in that cafe, I remember.
Yes, and then he wrote about seeing her in the hospital, and she said that she would die if people would only leave her alone, you know. But he also said, I am told, this is awful, but he said, I am told that Dorothy Dandridge is an actress. I have yet to see that be the case. This is what James Baldwin said. Because he felt, and a lot of people felt, that Billie Holiday should have played that part, that it should have been given to Billie Holiday, that she knew who Bess was. She understood that. She understood everything about what Bess was going through.
That's really
it was her life, and that Bess should have played that role.
Oh,
and James Baldwin was a friend of Bess, and therefore that's why he was a bit scathing in saying that about Dorothy Dandridge.
Wow, I mean, the image of her playing.
Yeah, she had done it.
But speaking of, well, you had a lighter role in the show, but Carousel, which is coming back to us, and which was the first time that I and most of the world actually fully realized how great you were, is in that production, which was, you were just amazing in. But Carousel's also problematic. I mean, we get a little celebration of, you know, wife beating. Yeah. And, you know, sometimes it doesn't feel like, so what does it feel like to talk? And here it's coming back to Broadway.
Yeah, to see it now, too. You know, it's interesting, when we were doing Carousel back in 1994, one of the nights that we were doing the show was the night of the infamous slow-speed white Broncos chase down the 405 with O.J. Simpson on the run. And it was so interesting. We were all just, you know, our hackles were all up as we were getting ready to start the show that night, because everybody was watching what was happening. There's like places we got to go, and then to step into this world, you know, where you've got this wife, this you know, domestic abuse situation. It's interesting. I think what I was saying to Oskar and I were talking about this a little bit backstage, with that show, it doesn't, just because a character says something doesn't necessarily mean that it's true.
Right.
You know, and so I think for some people that are saying, why are they doing Carousel again? It's about a wife beater, and then, you know, then she seems to think it's fine, and she says it's fine. How could, you know, why are we doing that in the age of Me Too, and how could you do that? This is, you know, how certain people in this particular situation are dealing with it. Just because Julie says, yes, it's possible for somebody to hit you really hard, and it not hurt at all. Julie can say that and not necessarily mean it, but realize she has to say something to this child who's had this emotional experience. And when we did Carousel, to watch Sally Murphy, the girl who played that part, when she said those words, or even when she's saying, what's the use of wondering? It wasn't just, yeah, he beats me, like it's really great, and I love him. Here's a high note. She didn't sing it like that at all. She sang it from a place of anger at herself. She sang it from a place of just being resigned, that this is the life that I have chosen. And she sang it from a place of, and in the end, throughout all of it, I still love this man, and I can't figure out why, but I do. And that's real. Yeah. And that's real today for women and certain people in 2018. And so that's why I think Carousel can still have all the relevance that it needs to have. And I don't think you need to shy away from it. Right. I mean, you can shine a light on it all, but that once again will show us, like theater is brilliant at doing, is how, one person's experience of something.
Yeah, but what you're describing, what's so interesting is that it's not shying away from and trying to polish up how ugly the emotion is, but it is creating perspective on it. It is saying we don't have to simply buy this as God's point of view.
No.
We see it in context.
Yes, and then you can then sort of you can really weep for that person and saying, oh God.
Right.
Would that you could save yourself, or that someone could save you from that.
You know, it's interesting. That's exactly what you're saying about Bess in Porgy and Bess too, which is that the way that you alter it is not by making a happy ending.
No.
Is not by changing how dark it is, but by letting us understand how dark it is.
Exactly.
Letting us understand from now.
And they say that's how the Greeks got it right, in terms of why we have theater in the first place, is because we needed to see people up there, killing their fathers, having sex with their mothers, whatever, going through all these huge, emotional things, because it gave us more understanding of ourselves, and
right.
gave us the catharsis that we needed.
Exactly right.
Well, and what was the quote that you were?
She's setting me up now.
I'm not. Well, I'm not. But
in a good way. In a good. She's being that. No, I was just saying that Aristotle
yeah.
In the Poetics, he has this famous statement that tragedy shows people as better than they are, and comedy shows people as worse than they are. And the way I've always interpreted that is not as, say, the neoclassical French did, that meant that tragedy had to be about nobility. It meant that tragedy was about people who were more willing to follow through on their desires and face the consequences of their desires than we are.
Yeah.
And comedy is about people who are more desperate to avoid the consequences of their desires than we are. And I think, this is exactly what you're describing for Bess and for Julie and Carousel. So, Audra, I promised that we were going to at least try to figure out a little bit of how you can do this. How did you start doing this? Where did you? I mean, your mother's here. We could ask her. But where did you come from?
Where did I come from? I came from my mom. That's my mom, Audra McDonald. There, I came from her.
Yes. Yes. And actually, on behalf of the American Theater, let me take this moment to formally thank you for one of the greatest gifts the American Theater has ever had. We know Audra wouldn't exist without you, so thank you. But so, how did you start? How did they know you were an actress? Wow. From age 2 on, Audra was an actress.
Very animated, very emotional about little things, deathly afraid of the thunder, everything like that.
Everything affected me in a very big
animated, emotional about little things. I'm sure they didn't seem little to Audra.
Huge to
deathly afraid of thunder.
I was very afraid of thunder.
So how did you find the theater?
My parents.
Would you like?
When Audra was about 8 or 9 years old, my husband and I went to celebrate our wedding anniversary. When Audra was about 8 or 9 years old, my husband and I went to celebrate our wedding anniversary at a local dinner theater. And before the actual presentation, there was a group of young people who did a cabaret show. And they called them the Junior Company. And after they performed, and we had been dealing with one of Audra's performances at home. And at the time, my husband was taking some child psychology classes. No, he really was. And he asked his professor, he said, I've got this kid at home who it's like she's a parade every day. And he said, you need to channel that energy. Well, one of it, we were told, you might want to put her on Ritalin, get her into something like that, because they called her hyperactive. And when we were sitting and saw all of these kids performing, we looked at each other and said, Audra, let's get her up there. And that's what we decided to do. We let her audition, and she became a part of the Junior Company and had an outlet for all of that energy.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Sorry.
And did you know right away that this was what you were going to keep doing? Right away. So how old were you when you?
8 or 9. 9.
Wow.
Yeah, 8. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what did it feel like?
I felt calm, which is crazy.
No.
I felt, it's exactly what my mom described. I had an outlet, I mean, if I was going to freak out about the thunder, I could freak out about the thunder while singing on stage, and and get paid $10 a week to do it, which was my salary at the time. I was thrilled with $10 a week.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so for me, I had an outlet, so I felt normal.
Yeah.
I felt normal. I didn't feel crazy, or for me, my memory is that I didn't feel like I was a problem anymore. In that maybe, and I'm sure there were more problems to come, but in the sense that I had a place to go and be myself, you know? And it was like it just fit. It was like that piece in a puzzle. There's an opening in the middle of a puzzle, and they just plugged me in. It's like, oh, okay, that's why I have the piece that looks like this, and this piece of my heart that beats really big like that, because it fits in here, you know? So that's, yeah.
That's you know, what's funny about that is that you're the greatest performer of a generation, and I'm just a guy who runs a theater. And that's exactly how I felt about the theater when I went there. I felt normal for the first time. I didn't feel like I was too loud for the first time. I didn't feel like I cried too easily for the first time. I didn't feel like I laughed too much.
Yes.
I mean, all of this stuff that I was in Minnesota, and boy.
Minnesota, Fresno, it's, you know.
Yeah. And the crying too much thing for a boy, not good. But it's exactly that. You feel
Well, you started talking about you found your tribe.
Yeah.
Found your tribe, you know.
And it lets, you know, it's the beautiful thing about the theater is that I've never found anything that I care about that I can't bring into the theater. Any subject I'm interested in, any feeling I have, there's a place to.
There's a space for it all. Yeah, absolutely.
And so as you started growing up and went off to that very non-competitive place, Juilliard, that very sort of accepting, almost hippie school, I think. How'd that work out?
Oh, great.
What did it feel? Because once you're there, that's like serious professional.
Yes, I mean, Juilliard was, it seems like it should have been just like right along the trajectory, but for me, you know, I auditioned for a couple of different schools and I think I got into UCLA and UC Irvine and NYU. And my mom took me to New York to audition for Juilliard, and I just blew the audition because I didn't really know about opera, and I didn't think that that's where I would end up. But I just thought, let me audition for the vocal department because I think my singing is my strong point. But I was thinking that I'd end up in, you know, the musical theater department. There's no musical theater department at Juilliard, but I didn't figure that part out. So I went ahead and I auditioned, and I riffed at the end of De Vieni non tardar, which is, you know, Mozart's, you know, aria from, you know, Le Nozze di Figaro. You don't riff with Mozart, but I did. I said I was a mezzo-soprano, even though I was singing a soprano aria. I said, yeah, I'm a mezzo, and then I say, they're like, no, you're not. What are you doing? I just was terrible. And they accepted me. So it was like, well, Juilliard accepted me. I better say yes, especially before they figure out that they made a mistake. So I just went. And I just thought, well, I'm in New York. I'm close to Broadway. My address was on Broadway. Here we go. This is going to happen. And what I thought was, you know, this trajectory felt like, because I was in the vocal performance. Right. Which meant you study your languages, you study your Italian, your French, your German, your Spanish, your English diction, you take literature and material classes, you take ear training classes, you take all the classical classes you need to be a classical musician. You have your voice lessons, and that's it.
Wow.
And so all of a sudden I felt like I made the wrong turn somewhere, and I am never going to get to Broadway, A, and B, I hate what I sound like. I don't want to be an opera singer. I don't like singing like this. Yeah. That's not what I want to do. Yeah. What's happening? It was a very confusing time for me.
Wow, Audra.
But I ended up finding out that I did have an operatic sound, and Juilliard helped me discover a whole section of my voice that I didn't know existed. And so once I was able to figure all that out and then come back around the bend. I mean, and maybe my path was this way, and I just thought it was this way. I don't know.
Yeah, or it's just life was happening to you, and it was letting you figure things out.
Yeah, and I was in the exact right place. But the whole time I was there, you could have never convinced me that I was.
Yeah, I mean, partly is that your mistake started at the audition of thinking that your voice was your strong suit. I want to point out that Audra is the only actor in American history who has won every possible Tony Award for Best Supporting Actress, Best Lead Actress, Best Actress in a Musical, and Best Supporting Actress in a Musical. I don't think your voice is your only strong point. I mean, the jury's in on that one. But it was right in the middle of there that you went to Carousel, right? Or right after you?
Right after.
How did that happen?
I had a breakdown while I was at Juilliard. I had a bit of a mental break. I had a suicide attempt. I ended up in a mental hospital for a month. And I took a semester and a little more off from school. And then I went back to, all supported by the school. They were very supportive. And it's nothing that I hide. I talk about it quite openly, especially because I know a lot of young people listen to me and follow me and follow my career, and I want them to know that there is a way through. And so I went back, and while I was there, I got the opportunity to audition for Carousel. And no, I got the opportunity to audition for The Secret Garden, which was going on tour. And I auditioned, and they accepted me, and I had to ask permission to leave school to do it. And they said, yeah, go do that. We think that's probably where you're going to end up anyway, so we're fine with it. So they let me go.
Wow.
And they said, you can defer and just graduate when you're done with that. So I came back, graduated, went back out on the road with that, and then auditioned for Carousel and got Carousel. So a year after I graduated, I opened, like almost 2 months, a year and 2 months after I graduated, I opened in Carousel across the street at the Vivian Beaumont. And I could literally, from the Vivian Beaumont, look up and see my school and some of my classmates that had gone on to get their master's degrees that were much smarter than I was and whatnot. But just, so it was.
That's pretty magical.
It was very magical.
That's pretty extraordinary. And
very lucky.
Did it feel, I mean, there in the Beaumont doing Carousel, did it feel like you were now on the path you needed to be on? Did it feel right? Did it feel?
Yes, as much as one can be present at 23. Yes. No. Do you know, in that sense that, life is still happening here, and, I was still a spastic 23-year-old, but yes, in that sense, I felt like, yes, I'm on Broadway. But I'm singing Rodgers and Hammerstein in a with a pretty decent technique in a classical way.
Yes, right.
That I wouldn't have known how to do had I not gone to Juilliard,
First of all, I just want to thank you for talking about psychological difficulties. That's a big deal, Audra. It's something that an awful lot of people don't talk about. And again, it's just, it's partly also the way you talk about it. It's just so clear that the difficulties you had, you have integrated and recovered from and built an absolutely, not only extraordinary career, but an extraordinary life. Because I do know her a little bit, and I will say that Audra is proof of one of those things, that the really greatest artists are the best people I know. There's some just below that level who can be real jerks, but seriously, the greatest artists I know are just, they are that great partly because of the size of their heart and the integration of their spirit, and so thank you for that. And maybe we could take just a minute to talk about, I know you're really involved in Covenant House. I know you've become more of an activist, and
I think that's due to, well, a couple of things. I'm very aware of how lucky I am and the opportunities that I've been given and the great amount of luck and blessings I've had in my life. And, I've always been vocal, I guess that's a good word to use about everything.
Thunderstorms.
Yeah, thunderstorms, whatnot. But I think activism really started, you know, in earnest when I was certainly raised, you know, in a very democratic household, and I know my mom's brother, Uncle Lloyd, did the sit-ins and stuff, right? That during the '60s, yeah, because they're from the Washington D.C. and Virginia area, and so that was sort of in my blood, and on my dad's side of the family as well. My great uncle was an activist. He actually worked with Bobby Kennedy for a second. Met Bobby Kennedy, I think, was to meet with him the day after he was assassinated, Uncle Jesse. At any rate, all that to say that it's in my blood. And then I met my wonderful husband, Will, who's also here, and he's an actor. And so we blended our families, and we're, you know, raising our kids together. And Will was working with you on Hair. Will was starring in Hair, and Oskar was producing that for the public, and then on Broadway, right in the midst of the marriage equality movement. And Oskar and Will and all the rest of Will's cast got very involved with that. And it was certainly something that I was very passionate about, being someone who absolutely believes in marriage equality and LGBTQ rights. And we got very much, not caught up, but just very involved with that movement. And did the march and did rallies in New York City. And I went up to Albany to you know, lobby members of our Congress up there. And then I was looking for a place to donate money on opening night of Lady Day. Instead of giving opening night gifts to my cast, I thought because the cast consisted of me, the band, and the dog, the Chihuahua. So I was like, what do I get the Chihuahua for opening night? So I decided I would do a donation somewhere. And I thought about the Covenant House, which a lot of Broadway folks had done some work for. And the Covenant House is a shelter for homeless youth. And there's homes in Canada and in the United States and in Latin America as well. And so I went down to do a donation in between shows because Billie Holiday was homeless for a lot of her childhood. And you know, had a rough childhood. So I thought this seems appropriate. So I went in and I had a check, and it was in between shows on a Saturday, and there was two sort of security guards there, and they said, we don't have anybody here today. This is the weekend who can take a check. We're not allowed to do that. So we'll call around and see. So just have a seat. So while I was waiting, I saw a young man come in off the street with a trash bag. And he looked about 15, maybe 16, and he looked so world-weary and exhausted and frightened and defensive. And these two security guards had also been kind of flirting with me, and they'd been saying, you know, you could write that check to me and all this stuff. And so I was, you know, whatever. And then they saw this kid come in, and they just leapt into action like they were Batman and Robin, and just took this kid, said, hey, you're all right, come on in, man, we got you, you're okay, what you need? You need to sit down, you want something to drink, you want something to eat? We're gonna take care of you, we got you. And my heart blew wide open. And so I got very involved with the Covenant House, and am now on the International Board of Directors, the Covenant House. And in fact, my plan is to share part of the award, the McDermott Award, with the Covenant House to help some of those kids there. So. But anyway, so that's why. And it's because, thank you, it's because, you know, as Michelle Obama said, you know, once you walk through that door of opportunity, you don't slam that door behind you. You reach back through and help the next person. Reach backward and help the next person through. And it's just important, and I know it's a way that Will and I have been trying to raise our kids, and now we have our own little 17-month-old little monster that we have now, and if we can just keep her out of jail. I don't know. She's crazy. She's a wild thing. I don't know. But we're teaching them that they have to be good citizens of the world, and they have to give back, and so as we learn it, we're trying to teach it. So that's all.
And I just have to take a moment to say that I also, it is such a joy to watch you and Will together. Will, as a man and an artist, I admire so much. I've been so lucky to be able to work with him, and to watch that you two guys are able to make a life as actors and as a marriage together has been just a beautiful thing. So that's just me. Don't pay no attention. But before we take a few questions, I just have to let you know that I have promised Audra that I'm not going to use this opportunity to get her to sign up for shows for me. If you would like to use this opportunity, however, to force her to, she didn't say no to that. But aside from everything we're going to do together, Audra, what do you want to do when you look ahead? What are the things you'd still like to try to be scared by?
Everything. Seriously, I mean, I say it all the time, but it's true. I just want to evolve as an artist, as a person, you know, you got to make good use of the time we're given, you know, and I don't want to rest on my laurels. I don't want to be content with, I'm grateful for the success that I've had, but I don't want to go, okay, that's it, I'm done. I want to evolve. I want to be a better artist. I want to be a better wife. I want to be a better mother. Because if you're not evolving, you know, I want to be a better citizen of the world. I mean, maybe I'm going to run for office. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I want to do better. I know that's grammatically not correct. Sorry, MIT. I just want to, you know, I want to evolve.
Okay, if you do that, you have a dispensation. You don't have to do any shows for me if you run for office. I will, but other than that, you do. It's, you know, I think, anyway, I'm not going to sum up because what instead we're going to do is we're going to give the audience a chance to ask a few questions. I think we have microphones. And
thanks, Audra, Oskar, thanks so much. So we'll open it up. Really. You know, Audra, there is one alternative. If in the evolution, you might want to come join our MIT faculty.
Okay, I'll do that too.
We can talk to our president, and we'd be honored. We have microphones, and they're down here, and try to come up and maybe just, if you would, if you have a question, ask just one, so we give some time to others. I hope, don't be shy either.
No one has any questions.
Please, anyone here? Yes,
Hi.
please, thank you.
Hi.
Good.
Okay, this is really wild. You're like, low-key, you were like a huge vocal role model for me in trying to like develop my own unique voice, and I really appreciate you. And oh gosh, I'm tearing up. Okay, but basically, sorry, this is kind of weird. I'm like short, but the stairs are tall. Anyways, so like, I guess every role for an actor, I don't actually act, but like, I feel like every role is like another life that you live, and you can't really like do that without having some growth and change in yourself. So my question is, out of all the roles you've ever played, like on stage or on screen, which one has changed you the most, for better or for worse? This person. Yeah. So.
Between you and Talia, man, I mean, she asks the most amazing questions. I'm telling you, now you're getting me. The one that's changed me the most. Okay, I'm going to answer that in a different way. I'm going to tell you the one that was the hardest to play.
Okay.
It was the hardest to find, and that was Ruth in A Raisin in the Sun. And the reason why it was the hardest to find, because it was the closest to me on paper. And so I realized I was blocking because it was too close to me. She was a mom. She was, you know, an exhausted wife, a mom. She had, you know, issues. She, you know, was dealing with a pregnancy, all this stuff. Things that I really understood, and I was the same age as her, so I was blocked by her. I was blocked, and once I realized that I was blocked because it was too close to me, it was about learning to like, so maybe that role changed me the most because it taught me that I had to open up and go even deeper. And go to, like, what we were talking about before, like the third rail. We were talking about go to that third rail, which is a scary place to be, but it's where all the truth is, you know? And so that's the one that taught me, I think, to go
super deep. So that changed me in a good way as an artist, I think. A role that changed me in a bad way, I think my English teachers in 11th grade would say, it's when I played Eva Perón in Evita at my dinner theater that I grew up in, because I guess I became a bit of a shit at school. Because I was playing Evita at night and then going to school and being like, what, you want one from me? I'm not doing my homework. So I was the worst one. I was pretty bad.
Thank you very much.
Oh.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank you. Good luck with your career. Hi.
Hi.
And she's gone.
Thank you both for being here. You're very, very articulate, and my husband and I, who are New Yorkers and partners with the Public Theater, have enjoyed seeing you at the Delacorte and in other things. But I can't resist taking up the opening to say, when are you going to come back to the Public Theater? We'd love to see you again at the Delacorte or downtown.
Oh man, well, you know, Will and I both. Will and I both love the Delacorte. We'd love to come back to, I mean, anything at the Public, but the Delacorte for sure. There's something so magical about playing the Delacorte and being out in the open and doing Shakespeare or whatever, and you know, and then with the lovely baby raccoons coming up on stage every once in a while. During 12th night, the baby raccoons came up on stage, and Anne Hathaway and I thought that we were really killing the audience. They were just laughing. We're like, oh, we're nailing it. We come off stage we're like, we nailed that scene, and the cast was like, no, the raccoons had come on behind you. Doing the thing. But yes, anytime that Oskar will have us, Will and I will come, for sure.
That'll happen. Thank you. Well done. Yeah, that's your membership dues for the year.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, I'm gonna take a deep breath. You've been a hero of mine. Really, ever since I heard your voice, I think it was there was a Leonard Bernstein New York tribute album, and I heard you sing A Little Bit in Love, and I was more than a little bit in love.
Oh, thank you.
But you were a hero of mine in how you kind of the way you combined your classical training with musical theater, and it was just sort of a bolt hearing you talk about your college experience and sort of struggling to combine these and the different camps that music departments go into. And I struggled with that too, and I ended up leaving a music department. But I guess, would you have any advice for college students maybe struggling with that now, or do you get the sense that it's a little better now, that it's not kind of broken up in camps in this way? I mean,
Well, you know, I think I can't speak to every college department. I do know that there have been a lot of changes implemented at Juilliard since the years that I've been there, and they allow for the younger vocal students to have some acting classes, or they allow them to sing a little bit of musical theater. They give them performance opportunities now that were not available to me and my generation there, and that's, I think, made for a healthier sort of environment, a learning environment for these kids. And what my advice to the students has always been, listen and learn as much as you can, but trust your gut and do not try to sound like anybody else. Try to sound like the best version of you, but do not try and imitate. Do not try and sound like anybody else. And that is what will set you apart from everybody else, is that you have your own unique sound. And once I learned that, that's what sort of kind of set me free. And so that's what I say to my students more than anything. You know, I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, 24 years ago, I saw you in Carousel, and it's an indelible memory, and it was a wonderful performance, and I still remember that so vividly, and I'm going to remember that till the day I die. I really will.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Lizzie, in 110 Degrees in the Shade, you're a very high-octane person, and Lizzie is a plain character. What was your process in deciding how to present this plainness when it wasn't inherent in the way you self-present?
Well, I think the interesting thing about Lizzie is she's not a plain character. That's how everybody in her life kept describing her to her, and that's how she was sort of branded within the community. You're plain, you know. She talked a little too much. She was too smart. And so for me, it was. Instead of, in terms of what she looked like, okay, so I didn't wear any makeup in the show or anything like that. But I think Lizzie actually was a high octane person with a lot of passion and a lot of love to give and a lot of dreams and aspirations that she kind of felt were constantly being pushed down. And so the struggle for Lizzie is to truly believe, and that's what Starbuck gives her, is that she, helps her to see that she is beautiful. She is deserving of love. She does have all that within her. So I didn't. It was. I think it's quite actually the opposite. Is that she was not that. She was not that, and the journey is discovering that she's not that.
Well, I'm glad I have the album.
Oh, okay.
Please.
Hi.
Hi. So you've worked both on stage and on screen, but you've also had your stage work recorded, as with Lady Day and the HBO recording. And I was wondering if you could just speak a little bit to that experience of taking what's somewhat more ephemeral in nature, as theatrical performances are often described, and how it was like to do that for a single recording, and what you think of kind of recording theater in general, although that's a very touchy topic for a lot of people.
I think it's very important. For me, maybe it's just me being selfish, there are performances that we'll never have because I would have loved to have seen Merman in Gypsy,
Can you imagine opening night of Hamlet with Burbage at the Globe Theater? Wouldn't it? If we had we'd kill for a tape of that, right? Yeah,
so I think I love that Lincoln Center Library archives all the shows now. That's very important that we have, that history. Speaking to your second, or the first part of your question, we did Lady Day when we filmed it. We filmed it at a kind of defunct cafe in New Orleans that we were able to sort of turn into the nightclub. And it was very difficult. It was very difficult. We did it over 3 different nights, and we did have audience members come in. So we felt like, because there people would have been in the audience, so that's the realistic sort of portrayal. But it was very difficult because we also had 11 cameras, and that's a very tiny space. So we had 11 cameras, and even like when she would go, off the stage and go to the bar and stuff, I was having to kind of walk by and over camera dollies and stuff like that. So it made for a sort of, I had to use different muscles. And if we're being completely honest, I haven't seen it. Honestly, I haven't, and I think it's going to be years before I'm able to watch that performance, because no one wants, I don't like watching myself on film, and I know what I went through in trying to stay focused to get that performance. So it would be uncomfortable for me to watch, but it's a very tricky thing to do. I don't think I answered your question.
You absolutely did. Thank you so much.
Okay.
One thing I would say about that is I'm delighted that the New York Library for the Performing Arts exists. I'm delighted that we have the Theater on Tape collection. And to me, it is an academic research tool.
Yes.
I go up there to study stuff. I don't ever feel like I'm going up there to have a complete experience of a work of art. Mm-hmm. I'm going up there, it's a historical record of a work of art that isn't there anymore. Mm-hmm. Because, my parochial view is that the theater is supposed to vanish. That's the whole truth of it, just like we do. Mm-hmm. It vanishes. And so, but that doesn't mean that I don't love having it on tape.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi.
Hello, thank you. You talked about thinking and researching the roles, but I'm curious about practice and how you practice, or maybe rehearse in your field, and what's different about that than when you're standing in the moment and performing.
Do you mean in terms of rehearsal process?
Yes. And,
Well, I mean, when you're working on any show, I mean, you rehearse, usually 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, and, with like a Broadway schedule, you rehearse 10 to 6 every day, 6 days a week for 6 to 8 weeks. And then once you're up and in previews before you officially open a show, you do the show at night and you rehearse during the day as well. And aside from that, a performer is like an athlete. You still have to take your voice lessons. You have to keep yourself in tip-top condition because it is our body is our instrument. So Will and I both, we still take voice lessons, and if like when I was doing Shuffle Along, I was having to learn how to tap dance or remember how to tap dance after 40 years of not doing it. I had to figure out how to do that again. So the training never stops. You're constantly in training, Thank you. You had a second part of the question. What's it like then once you stand on stage? Then here's the thing. Once you get up on stage, you then have to throw it all out the window. And that's the truth. You throw it all out the window, and you're forced to be in the moment, and just then I don't want to say you're flying on blind faith and luck, but you do have to throw it all out the window.
Yeah.
And then just go down to your gut. Do you want to do it?
No, but I think about it in an athletic, performative space.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
You don't rehearse the marathon in the same way that you run the marathon.
That's true, but you train for a marathon, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Hi.
Hello. One of my favorite plays was Masterclass with you.
Oh,
and I have
Enzo.
wondered if I'm missing your signature, but I've been waiting 22 years
23 years.
And I do have Zoe Caldwell's signature, and just wondered if you would consider playing the part of Maria Callas at this time, or have you?
First of all, yes, I will sign your poster. I'm sorry I wasn't there to sign it 22 years ago. Shame on me. And actually, that question has been asked before, if I would want to play Maria Callas.
I think you would, should, could.
It's an amazing role. It's hard because there's a part of me that would absolutely love to do it, but there's a part of me that the performance by Zoe Caldwell, who I named my first child after, is so sacred to me that I don't know that I would want to touch it, because it's so sacred to me, my relationship to her, what she meant to me, what that whole experience meant to me, and watching every night her do it, there's a part of me that doesn't want to be, there's a part of me that feels that it might be sacrilegious to play her. It's my own personal thing. So I don't know, but it's an amazing role.
I'm begging because Thank you.
I will sign your poster after, I promise. Hey, how are you?
Hi, good.
Good. This is one of the students that I've been working with this year. She has an amazing voice.
Thank you. So last night you sang a song from the perspective of a daughter whose mother is a performer who's always away, and you mentioned kind of your goal to not be that way. So I'm just curious, kind of a personal question, how do you and your husband kind of make that not happen and make sure that, that's not how your children feel? Kind of like a...
Mike is right there.
I'm sure you're both
Seriously,
wonderful
I'd be
parents.
curious, what's it like from your perspective? I mean...
Oh, it's like a Chinese jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
I don't know. We like sit down and have planning meetings. You're going to this soccer lesson, and I'm going to take this to rehearsal, and you have to work this day, and
it's a bit of like air traffic control,
That's a better metaphor.
But I mean, Will and I, we don't. It's not like we go out and party a lot. If we're not working, we're really with the kids.
But we also make certain choices. Like we don't take. We don't really audition for like TV shows that shoot in LA so that we can be home. And for a lot of actors, that would minimize a whole lot of work.
And years ago, it certainly did, because there wasn't a lot of film and television in New York. A lot of it was all LA, and that's slowly changing. But yeah, absolutely. And it is a lot of planning and one foot in front of the other as each day goes. But literally, when we're not working, we're with the kids. I mean, there's no children present right now. So that's a little, actually, one is here. One did a tour of MIT today. Yeah, so maybe I'll be giving the rest of the award right back to MIT. Maybe that's where it'll go. You know what? Here's the thing. You commit to finding a way to make it work, and you commit to being as good a parent as you possibly can, and then you prioritize. And so it's like it's work or their kids. And if they have other plans, then we'll sneak away. But other than that, it's work or the kids. I think, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. You can do it. You can do it. But take your time.
Could we get a microphone over here? Susan. Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Hello, how are you? Nice to see you.
Well, it's good to see you. I'm wondering, you received this phone call from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology to be told that you're going to get a McDermott Award. And did you think they got the wrong number, first of all? Yep. I'm just wondering if you could tell us, what surprised you about the residency? What surprised you about the students and the faculty? What was your experience?
You hear MIT, and if you're as intelligent as I am, you think, oh, which is, not much intelligence. But I think, so I had a sort of preconceived sort of idea, a notion of what the students would be like. And I was telling Talia this, the student that I had the interview with, I was telling her this earlier. I had, this sort of, they're all got their heads in books, or they're, working on, they're blowing up things in a science lab, or they're, what could I possibly teach them, and are they even going to be interested? And what I discovered is these kids are not only, they do not have their heads in books, that's a lot of it because they have to, but they are wide-eyed and curious and precocious, and they seem to be full of joy, and what I got a sense from all of them was like, does this make sense? This is what I feel when I think about these kids. I see them reaching and arms open and wanting to discover. And so for me, coming in to spend time with them and talk to them, and the few sort of master classes that I gave or helping, they were just sponges full of joy and wonder. And I always felt very hopeful when I left, that if these kids want to not only, figure out how to get us to Saturn, cure cancer, and sing an aria all in one day, if they want to do it, they can. They can. And yeah, I was very inspired, really. And what I saw from the faculty is that they give them the support and the space. They give them the support and the space. And what I didn't expect, but what I was thrilled to see, is there's warmth that comes from the faculty that I've spent. There's warmth there's a warmth and a genuine caring that they have for their students, and that filled me with a great deal of hope. I mean, especially like watching the way Laura works with her kids. You could tell she loves each and every one of those kids so much, and is there for them and a support. So especially as a mom, we're getting ready, 2 of our oldest are going off to college in a year, to know that you could send your kids to, a place like this or wherever you go, and there's going to be the support and warmth and love, as well as the knowledge that they need. I was inspired. I'm a convert.
If I can just add, I came here last night. I was in Vancouver speaking at the TED conference, and I'm surprised anybody's here because it felt like the entire MIT faculty was presenting at the TED conference. But the kind of genius, technological genius that I was hearing over the past few days in Vancouver, the idea that can be coupled with an understanding of the importance of art and the importance of what culture means, not just in general, but particularly research, particularly the idea of science and advancement. Some of you are old enough to remember C.P. Snow's The Two Cultures. The more that we can get the culture and the science, the technology and the art to speak to each other, the more likely we are to have a world that we want to live in.
Right. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Hi. I loved in the video reel hearing you talk about having if there's a role or something that you're scared of, that you have to do it because it'll make you better, even if it's not successful. So I was thinking, I was wondering if there was a time that came to mind that you can think of when you were working through that, where you were doing something you were scared of and it maybe wasn't as successful as you would have hoped. And do you have anything, what would you say to somebody who might be in that space right now?
I would say to you, wait, come here. Don't go away. Where are you going? Come here. No, I mean, you don't have to stand back.
I just wanted to get out of the spotlight, that's all.
Ask and leave. You know? I would say don't be afraid of the failure. The failure is part of the learning experience. And I failed on a daily basis. On a daily basis, you fail. If you succeed at everything, you won't ever grow because you won't ever learn. Yeah, I firmly believe that. You know, let me give. I'll be personal. Let me give you an example. As recently as yesterday, I was scared to death to do Laura's piece at the concert last night because we had only rehearsed it once. And I felt like I don't want to let Laura down and not do it here. This is her home. This is where she's teaching. This is where the kids are. And this is where I learned the piece. But I'm not ready. And I'm scared. And so at the point in the concert when it was time to do it, I turned to the pianist and he said, "Do you want to do it?" And I said, "I'm gonna mess up." And he was like, "Okay." And he started to turn the page to the next song. And then I thought, "You're scared, you need to do it." And I turned back to him, I said, "Let's do it." So last night, you fail on a day, and I didn't get it all right. I mean, some of the kids said, "Know what, I messed up on a lot of the lyrics, but oh well, sorry, Laura. I'll get it right by May 1st, I will." But it doesn't matter, but I'm glad I did it. And I learned, and I fell a little bit on my face, but in the end, and you know what? And so instead of just hiding all that from the audience, I told the audience, like, I've rehearsed this once, I need to do it, let's see what happens. And I said to the kids, if I mess up, shout out the words to me, we'll get through it. So fail every day, you'll learn something. Now you can go. Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
First of all, I want to say thank you because when I was in 7th grade, I saw you in Porgy and Bess in New York, and that's probably 90% of the reason why I started singing.
Oh my goodness.
So, and then my question is, as a singer who mainly has classical training, I was wondering if you had any tips for expanding to other vocal genres without losing touch with my own voice.
Sing what you love. Does that make sense? Sing what you love. I mean, even if it's, sometimes at home I'm singing Earth, Wind, and Fire. I love Earth, Wind, and Fire, you know? And so it's coming from a place of joy in my heart, and that means it's something that wants to, you fancy yourself a singer, absolutely, right? It's a part of who you are. So if you sing from a place of love and to sing from a place of something that you want, that gives you joy, just do it. The only thing I would say is, as long as you're singing with your voice, that's all that matters. Don't try and be anybody else. I don't sing Earth, Wind, and Fire like Philip Bailey. You know, I wish I could sing like Philip Bailey, but I don't. I mean, we sing the same octave because he sang very high, but I sing like me. So I'm bringing my own interpretation to it, but I love it and I want to sing it and I have something to say about that music, about, you know, September's song or, you know, Got to Get You Into My Life, whatever, it doesn't matter. But I'm singing it with my voice. So stick with your own voice, but sing what you want.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
You were at the lunch too the other. Yes, honey. You're backlit. Now I see your face. Hi. So we had like flan or something when we had the lunch? The creme brulee. That's right. Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I was wondering. So like you were mentioning how you did research for like your roles and stuff, and it's like a lot of them like have a lot of historical context and all that. I remember like our school, my high school did Ragtime my freshman year. And it's like that's why, and it was the soundtrack that was when I first learned about you, and that was amazing. But so I was wondering like so when you have like you do all your research and then you have all the context and the background, it's like how do you balance that like that information like with your own interpretations and like and when you're performing in the roles?
So how do I balance all the information from all the research that I've done with my own interpretation?
Yeah, like how you like insert yourself into the role.
The research is there to support you. Do you know what I mean? But in the end, the role has to be filtered through you. So you take that research, and it's there, and it's there to support you as you then plug it into your own soul. And then in the end, you can't take all those books and recordings and everything out on the stage with you and you go, all right, I'm gonna play Billie Holiday, but let me show you how, I swear this is right. Check this out. Because in the end, that's what I'm saying when I said to him, you got to throw it all out the window. It's there to support you, in that phase of it, but then at the end, you throw it out the window, and then it's how it then filters through yourself. So in the end, it does become up to you, and it becomes a part of who you are. I mean, and I would imagine, I don't know about the sciences, but I would imagine in some way, you can look at all the research, but then you have to come to your own conclusion about what all the research has shown you, right? That has to be your conclusion in the end. So I think maybe it's the same.
Thank you.
I don't know.
Thank you.
So, Audra, first, congratulations on the 2018 Eugene McDermott Award in the arts at MIT. You're spectacular. You've honored us. And you brought Oskar with you to double honor us. And the two of you are phenomenal together, and you could see this audience just deeply appreciates what you've done for us on this occasion.
Thank you so much.
Please stay close to us.
I will.
I
will.
Both of you.
We will. Thank you.
Well done, brother. Well done.
Thank you.